Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Every time I get up in front of the congregation, this has been my entire rabbinical career, I have really only one goal. I want you to love Judaism. Every part of it, all dimensions of it, that's my goal. I want you to love Judaism because I think we have such a precious tradition, and it is to be loved. And I don't care how you approach it or what flavor of Judaism you end up being. I just want you to love Judaism. I want you to realize it's a great gift. In no way is it a burden. It says something important. It's significant. It is a light for us in our lives. I want to do that with something in Jewish tradition, but I struggle with it. And I'd have to say, this is Shabbat Chazon, which is the Sabbath immediately before Tisha B'Av. And this is a harder Sabbath for me than the evening of Rosh Hashanah. And I'm being very serious. Let me talk about Tisha B'Av and what it is, and how I deal with it, and how I don't deal with it. Now, Tisha B'Av is the 9th of Av, the Hebrew month of Av, and according to Jewish tradition, it's the saddest day in the Jewish calendar. It is described as, most specifically, the time when the temple was destroyed in 586 BCE, the temple that was created by Solomon. And then the temple was destroyed again, the second temple in the year 70. And along with that, there are many other horrible events in Jewish history that have been connected to it. For example, according to Jewish tradition, the Spanish Inquisition started on Tisha B'Av. Or according to Jewish tradition, all kinds of, the Warsaw Ghetto was purging took place on that day. All kinds of examples of the horror of this day, the sadness of its day. And associated with Tisha B'Av are these very, very powerful symbols and traditions. First of all, the chanting of the Book of Lamentations, which describes looking at the destroyed Jerusalem of the first temple. And it is chanted in a special trupa, which is very sad, it's very heavy. You can't, even if you don't know a word that's being said in it, when you hear the chanting of it, it has a tremendous impact on you in terms of the sadness. Tisha B'Av traditionally is a fast day. Tisha B'Av is traditionally a day that you don't study Torah, because Torah is supposed to bring you joy. Tisha B'Av is a day where you don't wear leather. People walk around wearing sneakers. All kinds of mourning traditions that are associated with Tisha B'Av. It's a very, very powerful holiday. And I had the experience in 1978, the year right before I went into, no, it's not 1978, 1974, when I was in Jerusalem the summer before I entered rabbinical school, and I was at the Western Wall for Tisha B'Av, and it was an amazing experience when you have people from all different flavors of Judaism sitting on the ground chanting Eicha, and it's a very powerful symbol. It's a very powerful tradition. And what does Tisha B'Av mean? What's behind it? It's not just the idea that the temple was destroyed, but that there were reasons that the temple was destroyed. And Jewish tradition doesn't blame the Babylonians or the Romans. Jewish tradition ends up blaming us, the Jewish people. And Jewish tradition describes all kinds of reasons why the temple was destroyed, one of them being Sinat Chinam. Jews were nasty to each other, they hurt each other, but there are other examples. And obviously, when we remember Tisha B'Av, not just the destruction of the first and second temple, but all the events that are associated with it, we're talking about the death of millions and millions of Jews. For example, we are told, Josephus, the great Roman Jewish historian, says that when the temple was destroyed, the second temple was destroyed, 1.1 million Jews were killed. Just think about that. So in and of itself, Tisha B'Av is a powerful tradition, a powerful memory. It has so much behind it. But I have problems. I know many of you know that I have problems, but I have problems relating to this issue. Where does it lead us? Where does Tisha B'Av lead us? In Judaism, in classical Judaism, there is a belief that not only is the temple destroyed, but indeed there is one tradition that says on the day the temple was destroyed, the Messiah was born. And how you link that is this ongoing idea that in Jewish tradition, the Messiah, you want to know what the Messiah does? How do I know the Messiah is real? The Messiah rebuilds the temple. According to Jewish tradition, the Messiah will rebuild the temple. That's what the Messiah does. And the reality is that what we're seeking for when we pray in a traditional framework is that the temple be rebuilt. Now, I'm not kidding. I mean, here, I'll give you an example. This is a beautiful prayer book. If you're interested in a very traditional prayer book, this is the prayer book that was edited by Rabbi Jonathan Sachs alav Shalom, who was one of the chief rabbi of England and a brilliant scholar. What do Jews pray in the additional service on Shabbat? They pray Naaseh v'nikriv lefanecha b'ahavak mitzvat ritzonecha. On this day of how do I say that? An additional offering will be offered on the Sabbath day, and we will prepare and offer it before you in love. In other words, what are we praying for? We're praying that in the future, the temple's going to be rebuilt, and we're going to offer sacrifices on the Sabbath, on the holidays. At the very end of the Amidah, a kind of closing meditation, what do we say? Yehi ratzon mifanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elokei avotenu shibaneh Beit HaMikdash b'mheira b'yameinu. What does that mean? It means that may it be your will, Lord our God and God of our ancestors, the temple will be rebuilt speedily in our days and grant us a share in your Torah. So what we do at the very end of the Amidah in traditional prayer is that we pray that the temple will be rebuilt and that we'll be able to offer sacrifices. Now let me tell you this. If I told you that your membership in the synagogue at New Reform Temple, one of the bonuses was offering a sacrifice in the temple in Jerusalem, how many people would like that idea? What if we charged you an extra $1,000? Bobby, would you like that? No, I'm serious. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That's what the traditional Siddur says. Now, I got to be fair. Conservative Jews have played with the liturgy over time, and slowly it's disappeared. And in fact, in Reform Judaism, it's been a whole different ballgame. In Reform Judaism, this idea of a temple and the idea of rebuilding the sacrifices and offering them again is something that is found to be really offensive. In Reform Judaism, you have no reference to that in the Siddur. We don't want a temple. We don't want to go and rebuild the temple. We're not waiting for a personal Messiah to rebuild the temple and offer sacrifices. And in fact, there is a wonderful statement that I have found, and I researched my sermons for you. This is a prayer book that was written. Its first edition was, I think, 1856, but the edition that I have is from 1896. And it's a prayer book called Olat Tamid by Rabbi David Einhorn, who's one of the founders of Reform Judaism in America. He came to America, he spoke German, eventually he gave sermons in English. This prayer book originally was in Hebrew and English, and then it was translated in, it was German and Hebrew, and then it was translated in English and Hebrew. But I want to read to you what David Einhorn says about Tisha B'Av. Is that okay? This is one of my favorite texts I've ever read to you. It's hard to understand, okay? Because it's written in archaic language. It says, however deeply and painfully our soul is moved by the recollections of an unutterable grief with which our ancestors went forth from their beloved Zion, their house, to go into the vast wilderness of heathen nations. In other words, it was horrible to be thrown out of your nation and sent into the world. Doomed to tread the thorny path of martyrdom. In all these sore trials, we recognize their guiding fatherly hand means for the fulfillment of their inviolable promise and glorification of thy name and thy law before the eyes of all nations. So what he's saying is, in spite of how horrible, how terrible, how bloody the suffering of the people of Israel, something good happened. Verily, as a disinherited son, thy firstborn went out into the strange lands, but thy messenger to all the families of man. All the Jews went everywhere. Some of us even ended up in Kansas City. Israel was no longer to dwell in its separation from all the rest of thy children. In other words, the Jews weren't going to be hiding in Israel anymore. Who were languishing in darkness and folly. He was to spread abroad the stream of his salvation and become himself the carrier of the refreshing waters of healing powers. We Jews are supposed to go into the world and heal the world. Did you ever hear Tikkun Olam? We're supposed to go and heal the world. And this is where it's so amazing. He says, the one temple in Jerusalem sank into the dust in order that countless temples might arise to thy honor and glory all over the wide surface of the globe. In other words, there's no temple in Jerusalem. There are temples like the New Reformed Temple or B'nai Yehuda Temple. The old priestly dignity was taken away and old sacrifice worship ceased, but in their stead, the whole community, in accordance with its original distinction, became a priest and was called upon to offer upon their sacrifices, which are more acceptable in thy thousands of rivers of oil. The sacrifices of active love to God and man. The sacrifices of pure and pious conduct. This is so old-fashioned Reformed Judaism. I feel like Moses telling you this. So in other words, what they're saying in effect is, the temple was destroyed. We went into the world. And you and I are priests. And what do? What do we sacrifice? We sacrifice our deeds of love and kindness. We show our sacrifices are being decent to each other and loving each other and caring for each other. That's the message. That's who we are. Judaism isn't about sacrifices. It's about our righteousness. The Reformed Jews got it right here, my friends. And you know I hate defending Reformed Judaism. I don't like You're laughing. I don't defend Reformed Judaism. There's a lot I don't defend. I defend this. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Rudnick, I'm saying this for you. I know you like this kind of prophetic Judaism. I worked hard on it just to make you smile. So Rabbi Elazar said, doing righteous deeds of charity is greater than offering all the sacrifices. As it is written, doing charity and justice is more desirable to the Lord than sacrifice. The Babylonian Talmud from Masechet Sukkah. So you should be thinking, okay, Rabbi Landi, you're excited about all this. Lighten up. I have no intention of lightening up because I think it's a really serious issue that goes beyond what I just said. I am not at war with Tisha B'Av. I think it's a powerful holiday, a powerful day of mourning. It's not a holiday, a day of mourning. I think the traditions of that are powerful. I would encourage people to participate in the Monday night program at Beth Shalom and all the traditions connected with it. But do we really believe that God's presence is in Jerusalem more than it is any other place on earth? I mean, I've taught my classes this, and you guys have yelled at me, but I'm going to say it again. I'm so tired of the idea of people going to the old city of Jerusalem and standing before a retaining wall and pretending something holy is going on there. Have you never noticed they take Israelis take every dignitary? I remember the picture of President Obama wearing a little black paper kippah on his head and standing in front of the Western Wall. I'll use this because this looks like the Western Wall. And like standing there and like feeling some kind of intention. What was he hearing there? It's a wall. It's not even the wall of the temple. It's a retaining wall. Come to my house. You can stand in front of the retaining wall and worship there too. There's a fantasy of rebuilding the temple, and it's not innocent. And this is what I really want you to hear. There are plenty of people in Israel who are running around Israel who believe that the creation of the state of Israel represents the dawning of the Messiah, and that the temple should be rebuilt, and that the sacrifice should start up, and that the Dome of the Rock should be blown up to make way for the rebuilding of the temple. And the religious extremists are the shock troops for the Messiah, and they're free to do whatever they want to promote their agenda. And their vision of Israel is not of a democracy, but of a theocracy. And you can say, well, these people are so marginal, it doesn't really matter. They're not so marginal. There are several people in the current government of Israel who are very sympathetic to those ideas, who do everything they can to go up in the Temple Mount and offer prayers there when, according to the kind of understanding, they're not supposed to do that. And many of the rabbis in Israel say you shouldn't go up on the Temple Mount where the temple was. It's not a good thing for Jews to do. And what do these people want to do? They think that because the Messiah is coming and they want to rebuild the temple and all that, you can persecute Jews and Arabs who don't agree with them. And that means that you can do anything that you want in the name of their religious fantasy. And there is a Temple Mount group who want to permit open prayer on the Temple Mount and are practicing animal slaughter techniques. I have pictures of them from Passover where they really were doing something relating to sacrifice. And there are members of the government who support their efforts. So this isn't just some kind of theoretical idea where Rabbi Landi can get upset on a Friday night. There's a theological meaning to this that we have to think about very seriously. So in this area, I have to admit it, I am a Reformed Jew. In this area, I'm a Reformed Jew. I find studying the temple and its laws and the priesthood to be wonderfully interesting. But no, we're not about to rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. What are we about? We're about synagogues and study houses and even homes, which we call Mikdash Ma'at, a small temple. And according to the Talmud, God will dwell in these holy spaces we create, for they are a temple in miniature. I find meaning in the holiness that we can create here in the sanctuary. We're more than stone. We don't care about animals being slaughtered 2,000 years ago. We're interested, as Rabbi David Einhorn said, for us to be a people where we are a priesthood that go into the world to heal it, to fix it. That is our mission. Shabbat Shalom.